So here we are in Khan Yunis, and as Dunya said, the raid on Khan Yunis began with a notice to leave large sections of Khan Yunis. Something like 50,000 people left in minutes, creating just brutal images of images that Palestinians have been experiencing for 76 years. Packing up their belongings, whatever they could carry, because there's not vehicles at this point. The roads are too destroyed to really be driving in vehicles. Of course, Gaza is mostly children, so it's always focused on children, these exoduses. And as soon as the operation ended yesterday, Palestinians immediately went back into Khan Yunis. The civilians are always the first to go back in and start cleaning up after these operations. There was a number of remarkable operations in Khan Yunis. So Khan Yunis was the site of a 6-month operation, we'll remember, that started in December and carried on through Ramadan, more than 128 days of ground war that the Israelis achieved nothing. They said Sinwar was there. They said Mohammed Deif was there. They weren't. They said their captives were there. They found none of their captives. No achievements. The commanders that were leaving Khan Yunis said that they didn't achieve their mission during that 6-month operation. And nobody's expecting the Israelis to go back into Khan Yunis. The fighters wouldn't be necessarily expected to go. Khan Yunis was ruined, was destroyed. It looked like the Israelis had pulled out of Khan Yunis and were finished with their destruction there. But they come back, the 98th Division, which has been roving around, the division that attacked Shifa Hospital, the division that attacked the Jabalia camp, and then attacked Shujaia a couple weeks ago. Now this past week, attacks in Khan Yunis. And if we look at number 5 here, Tamara, we could see as soon as they come in, fighters are advancing on predictable routes here. We're going to watch just the total ruin. The ruins are unbelievable. The fighters are able to move through this area because of the ruins, because there's no distinct buildings they can cover with camouflage here. And here they're climbing up on the berm that the Israeli military created to protect their tanks. And we have Palestinian fighters from the Qassam brigades here using that berm as concealment in order to hit the tank that the berm is intended to protect. So remarkable operation here. The fighter says you can see the vehicle being towed away, being dragged away by a tank. This was a combat engineering vehicle, and we'll watch it one more time, loop it one more time around tomorrow. This fighter's saying we're on our way to humiliate them. He says we're advancing towards their vehicles to humiliate them. And you can see, because of the rubbleization, because of the destruction, a fighter carrying a blanket like that is able to hide his moving between buildings in a way that if the buildings were intact would be much more difficult to do. So we're seeing the ruins be used on both sides of these operations, both in the preparation and in the execution. The ruins are being used as an asset by the Palestinians, and something that the Israelis have a hard time with. They described it in their peer-to-peer military commentary, that it's difficult for them to call out locations because there's nothing to distinguish the destroyed landscape, which allows the fighters to move around more freely. So we see that vehicle being towed there. Again, another defeated vehicle there. Let's do number 6, because these are Shawad, explosively formed penetrators. We see 5 fighters here, 3 of them carrying Shawad devices, a Yasin archer, 2 gunmen, and a photographer, moving into position. Again, Khan Yunis, the operation was over. 6 months, they destroyed it. There was no plan for the Israelis to return back to Khan Yunis. They return back, and the first day they're in Khan Yunis, they're being hit by these operations. You can see here the fighters are using the ruins to hide the weapon that's going to be detonated against tanks. So they're planting 2 Shawad devices here. And because of the rubble, they're able to cover it up. You see the Merkava tank enter the screen here. And the second he passes the EFP, it's detonated at the precise distance, about 1.5 meters, so that the explosive shape charge can form. So the fighter's putting it exactly where it is, aiming it at the rear door ammo storage, which what we're looking at there is the burn off of that vehicle, hitting the ammo storage, storage bays in the back of the tank. So planning these operations within the first minutes. Yeah, let's watch it one more time, because we don't usually get to see these long shots from 𝐓𝐶𝐞. And just the destruction is just appalling. It serves no military purpose. You can see in this video that it's actually an asset for the fighters, that the genocide, destruction by Israel has no military purpose. Look at the fighters here using an open building, a building that's blown out, to spot, and they're monitoring from that spot and picking the spots where to put the device based on where they predict that the army vehicles will go. So you can see the tank pass. Those back elements of the tank are the ammo storage, and it's detonated directly against the rear door, which is the most vulnerable part of the tank, or the ammo storage, which is not separated from the infantry that are in the back of that tank. So again, another successful operation. No indication of Israeli casualties in their reports on any of these videos. They acknowledged 4 dead in this last week, and they said 2 of them were friendly fire, gas inhalation from one of their operations trying to destroy tunnels. Unclear if that's the case, or if what they're talking about is the Rafah booby traps that we just watched. So let's do number 7, Tamara. This is another 𝐓𝐶𝐞, because they set up 2. We watched them go out and set up 2. And so we see the second one, and look at the proximity that the fighters have, because they know the direction with which the 𝐓𝐶𝐞 was placed. So the fighters know that they can just be a few dozen meters away to record that, because the directional, the unidirectional nature of the 𝐓𝐶𝐞 EFP allows the fighters to position themselves to get that camera. That's not a camera sitting on a ledge. That's a fighter with the camera in his hand. It's a spotter. The cameraman is also a spotter. So yeah, you can see this this vehicle also getting it. And interesting note, a British paratrooper, a 16-year infantry officer from the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, a senior lecturer, who said he fought with the Green Berets in Iraq, and he's on a paid junket to Rafah, and he's bragging about talking to commanders. They embedded him and took him into the Philadelphia corridor along the Rafah border, and he was talking to the commanders there, and he said one of the tank commanders told him that 2,831 vehicles in one division, there's 5 divisions that have fought in Gaza, have been damaged by enemy fire, is what his quote, needed some level of repair due to enemy damage. And he's bragging about that as what the Israelis told him. That number sounds ludicrous, but that's what the Israelis are telling him. And he's bragging about the fact that the Israelis are able to fix that many vehicles, passing over the fact that 2,831 vehicles in one division is absolutely absurd. And if even a fraction of that number were true, the Israeli army, we clearly see why there's a shortage of tanks. Let's look at number 8 here. We got another 𝐓𝐶𝐞, and again, this is against Namr troop carrier engineering vehicle. And so these fighters are talking right now, and the first one's saying, we want to detonate on the second vehicle, and the commander says, yeah, the second vehicle, make sure not the first one, make sure it's the second one. And he says, let it approach a little more. Here it comes. Let it approach a little more. You can see it's a recovery vehicle. You can see the crane on top of it. The Namr advances a little bit further, and they strike it. So the fighters are choosing which vehicle to strike, not the tank. They're choosing the vehicle that tows the tanks, that's full of 8 combat engineers, at least infantry in the cabin of that vehicle, 5 more than would be in the Merkava. So picking the targets, again, we've seen that all throughout the war. We're still seeing it consistently, making decisions on these armed convoys about which vehicle they're going to target. And then this one, number 9, we're going to watch this one a couple of times. This is remarkable. So you see these rounds here. This fighter, the commander is saying, this bullet is left behind, was captured by our fighters as the Israelis fled. You can see it says IMI, Israel Military Industries. That X, the crosshairs, is the NATO sign that it's compatible with NATO weapons. This is an Israeli bullet that has been captured by Qassam that is about to be used on an Israeli soldier. We're also seeing tactical deployment of drones here. The fighters are using the drones to pick the positions here in Khan Yunis. Again, this fighter's on his way to walking, and when he's saying we're going to go visit their vehicles for fun, there's no fear. And then you can see we've cut out the sniper operation where he used an Israeli bullet to shoot an Israeli soldier. And it looks, you can check it out on my Twitter account if you want. There's a double, it looks to be two soldiers are hit by one bullet, which is something we've seen actually multiple times throughout this war. That the 𝐓𝐴 sniper rifle round that you just saw him holding in his hand, let's loop it again tomorrow because you can see the size of the round. Like, look at the size of the bullet. They've made it in a triangle there. But you can see the size of the round in his hand, in his left hand there. Again, showing IMI, Israel Military Industries. They've been bought by Elbit. So this is an Elbit Systems bullet, IMI Systems. And he's giving this, he says, do you want to take this bullet? You take it for its due price. And the price, Abu Ahmed, is the soldier's head. Again, tactical use of the drones here that they're using, and using the data from it immediately to carry out these attacks, because this is an engineering operation that's taking place on the outskirts of Khan Yunis. And see, we hear the sniper here. This is an interesting shot of the sniper because he's not in a building in that shot. He's out in the open, which is something we haven't seen before. It's dangerous. It's obviously effective, but it's something that happened because of the rubbleization. There's so much rubble that you can hide in a position which would normally be saved for the bush in the city, because the rubble makes there be hiding places. So that's a remarkable operation, using an Israeli bullet to kill an Israeli soldier. No soldier has been claimed by the Israelis on that one. So Khan Yunis, after 6 months of war, the Israelis return 2 months later to Khan Yunis and are hit with those remarkable operations, all of them showing command and control, organization, still functioning, clearly functioning with military command. We're seeing the commanders, and we're seeing the operations be planned. They're not guerrilla operations that someone's snapping their fingers and carrying out a harassing operation. The 𝐓𝐡𝐞 that we saw be planted there were pre-positioned based on the prediction of what route the Israelis were going to take, and they were right about that. So the capacity of the resistance, even after these 6-month invasions, focused only on one territory, Khan Yunis, and the Khan Yunis Brigade can still meet the challenge 10 months on.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.